All right, shalom, shalom. Before I begin this lesson, I want to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Shalom, peace, love, many blessings to the elect. Start with the 144,001 Shalom. All right, it's the brother Atazawan from the GMS Atlanta camp, back through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai with another lesson. Lord willing, I do hope and pray that it's edifying. I was watching this elders video, which his channel was GMS Awakening 144 _ I'm one Gabar, which I watch often, a lot of his videos, and of course, more edification and prophesying is going on. We're in a time of major biblical prophecy unfolding before the eyes of the world. Okay. And what he's speaking about in this lesson is, a few brothers have done videos on it as well, but I wanted to touch on it dealing with this draft. Okay. Which President Donald J. Trump mandated a draft under the executive order of the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, which he did last year. Okay, he signed into law, and it's going to be mandated, they say, at the end of this year, which is 2026, around the time of December. Okay, and draft eligibility is all male U.S. citizens from the age of 18 to 26. Okay, and yeah, man, it's getting serious. Okay, it's been serious, but it's getting more serious, man. And you see that we're in the time of war. Okay, we're in the time of war now. There was supposedly a ceasefire for 2 weeks between America and Iran, but in Israel, but they didn't hold up to that end of the deal. So there's going to be more missile trade-offs. There's going to be more attacks. There's going to be more political things happening to fulfill these biblical prophecies, man. And this is the high time, man, like the scriptures say. Okay, this is a high time to awake out of sleep. Okay, because the Lord is going to appear very soon, man. Okay, remember, the third woe is going to come quick, meaning that this thing is going to happen fast, man. Okay, so they're projecting a military draft in December, which they could bump it up. Okay, they could bump it up. All right, now I got some information from an article. I'm gonna read a little bit. This is from militarytimes.com, which is a credible source. All right, and it says automatic registration for U.S. military draft eligible men to begin in September. Okay, so they already putting you people in a draft pool, man. Okay, and when they need to implement that draft, meaning they gonna come and get those names that's under that registration. Okay, so all you jakes out here, you white people, immigrants. Okay, that's a part of the bill as well, or the executive order as well, is immigrants. Okay, so if you are a legal immigrant between the ages of 18 and 26, you're going to get shipped out. And that's not just Mexican immigrants. That's Italians. That's African, Middle Eastern, anybody who is a legal immigrant. Okay. And hell, Esau might even grab up these illegals, toss them in the war. Okay. Because they need bodies, man. They need, crash dummies over there. Okay. To where the opposite military will use their arsenal on the more soldiers that they have, the more ammunition they have to use. Okay. So these devils is pretty much lining everything up to escalate this war, man. So let's get into it. All right. This is, like I said, militarytimes.com. Okay. And I'm going to just read a couple of paragraphs and then we're going to get into some scriptures and close it out. But it says automatic registration into the U.S. military draft pool for eligible men is slated to begin in December. Okay. But like I said, that's a few months out. And if there's an urgent situation that calls for this to be moved up, they can do that because it's already into law. They said it's slated to begin in December, but the way that this thing is moving, man, they could do this during the summer months, July and you know, August, September. Okay. It says, following efforts from lawmakers and the Selective Service Agency to streamline the previous self-registration process. So at first you had the option to self-register between 18 and 26, but now the SSA, which is the Selective Service Agency, is going to streamline all of those individuals who were supposed to register. They're going to just do it themselves. All right. It says the Selective Service System, the federal agency that maintains a database of registered U.S. males who are considered draft eligible in the event of a national emergency, submitted a proposed rule to the Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs on March 30th, according to the office dashboard. Automatic registration into Selective Service was mandated in December, like I said, of 2025. So this was last year, last December. All right. Trump signed it into law and to go into effect for fiscal year 2026, which is the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act. Okay. Which, you know, the NDAA been a thing. He probably just added that clause in there or, you know, whatever. All right. But let's go down. All right. Now, I want to read the penalty. Okay. Because there's going to be people who's going to try to say, oh, well, you know, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to. Okay. Watch this. It says men who fail to register. Not, you know, let's say they draft you. Okay. That's one thing. But if you fail to register to draft, are considered to be in violation of the Military Selective Service Act and can face penalties such as ineligibility for federal programs. So if you have any type of federal government assistance or federal programs that you use, you will be ineligible. Okay. And a fine up to $250,000 or 5 years imprisonment. So if you don't have that $250,000 to pay, then your ass gonna go to jail. Okay. And that's going to create more confusion and division. I foresee that when they do implement a draft, there's going to be riots and protests, man. That's when the division is really going to take off because a lot of people already disagree with this war. Okay. Now let's get a scripture real quick. This is Joel chapter 3. And I'm going to go down to the point. This is 14. It says, multitudes in the valley of decision. For the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision. That valley of decision is what? Is in the Middle East, the Saudi Arabian peninsula. Okay? In between the the Red Sea, okay, and the Persian Gulf. Okay, or the river Euphrates. Okay, that is that valley that the Lord is speaking about. Where this particular prophecy is going to take place, and the multitudes are the multitudes of nations and armies that's going to converge in that land to fight. Okay, and you already see that happening. I mean, America has already deployed thousands of troops, along with other NATO nations have deployed troops in that area. And there's going to be more. There's going to be more Russian, I believe the Russian Chechens, I believe that's how you say it, which is a faction of Russians. That's a raw faction of Russian troops. I believe they're ready to deploy. Okay. So we're in times where you're going to see swarms of nations coming into the Middle East to fight the war at Armageddon. Okay. And this is all the Lord's doing. This is the Lord gathering the nations bringing them into the heart of the Middle East to fight, okay, to judge the nations, okay? All militaries will be crippled after this war, okay? None of these nations will rise up to be the next superpower. The next superpower is the last superpower, which will be the house of David, starting with the elect, the 144,000, the 1/3, the remnant. That's the next world superpower, which will rule the world forever. Okay, Isaiah 34:1. Come near, ye nations, to hear and hearken, ye people. Let the earth hear and all that is therein, the world and all things that come forth. For the indignation of the Lord is upon all nations, and his fury upon all their armies, which is why the Lord is going to send all of their armies to that valley. Okay, he's going to send the armies of the world to that valley. Everybody is going to have to play. Everybody going to have to come out. It says he have utterly destroyed them. He have delivered them to the slaughter, because it's going to be a mass slaughtering in that land. Like I said, it's going to be so much, devastation in the Middle East that none of these armies are going to be able to rise back up. These military and government powers aren't going to be able to sit down and have a diplomatic discussion, to achieve world peace. There's going to be a nuclear trade-off, man. All right? High-ranking government officials are going to perish. Okay? The elite are going to go into hiding. So the governments of the world have reached the brink of their rulership. This is it for them. We're watching the last rule of the nations. Okay? The nations will never rule again after this. And this is all the buildup. Okay? Verse 2 again, for the indignation of the Lord is upon all nations, and his fury upon all their armies. Ye have utterly destroyed them. Ye have delivered them to the slaughter. Their slain also shall be cast out, and their stink shall come up out of their carcasses, and the mountain shall be melted with blood, and all the hosts of heaven shall be dissolved, and the heaven shall be rolled together as a scroll. So this is dealing with, the final battle, man. Okay? And like we always bring out in Isaiah 39, when the elect returns and gathers, the remaining nations out of the caves of the earth, their first job will be to bury all the dead bodies, because right, like we just read in verse 3, it said that their stink shall come up out of their carcasses, and the mountain shall be melted with blood. So there's going to be dead bodies all over the earth that need to be properly buried, and that's going to be the job of, the heathens who the elect gathers out of the rocks. Okay? So this draft is just, it lines up perfectly with the scriptures, man. And like the elder Amon Gabar was saying, and I've heard it several times, even before, when this thing first really kicked off. Okay? I've heard several brothers, mention a draft before the talk even came about. Before it was even articles or people posting it online. I heard it first from the apostles and elders and brothers, which shows you that we come in the spirit of the prophets. Okay? And there's going to be a lot more devastating events that's going to happen in the near future on and off American soil that's going to, continue to, move us in the direction of these prophecies. Okay? Brothers been having dreams and visions. Okay? All kind of things have been happening all year, man, since the year kicked off. It's been nonstop action. It's been, consistent, man. Okay? And it's going to continue to escalate. It's going to continue to develop and grow into much larger conflicts. Okay? Because the Lord has a controversy with the rulers of this particular time. Okay, verse 4, and all the host of heaven shall be dissolved. That's dealing with when the missiles hit, okay? And the heavens shall be rolled together as a scroll, dealing with that mushroom cloud, the nuclear fallout, and all their hosts shall fall down, meaning their armies. As the leaf falleth from off the vine, and as a falling from the fig tree. For my sword shall be bathed in heaven. What is the Lord's sword? That's dealing with the nuclear missile. Okay? That's the Lord created that. Okay? The Lord gave that information to the smith. Okay? But it's the Lord's information. It's the Lord's technology. And that he gave to the left-hand side. So it's his sword at the end of the day. Behold, it shall come down upon Idumea. Who is Idumea? That's Edom. Which Edom is who? The so-called white man. The different areas that this devil rules, their sword is going to come down. Various parts. Okay, it's going to obliterate America. Okay, from coast to coast. But also other parts where Edomites rule and dwell are going to be hit with nukes as well. Okay, and upon the people of my curse to judgment. Okay, and that's the ultimate thing, man. So when you see, these militaries making decisions to draft these young men and put them in the war, and, they're going to train them, give them guns, and teach them how to do this, X, Y, and Z, that's because the agenda is to go to this world war, man. And most people out here still, mind is occupied in BS. They're not paying attention to what's going on a global scale. Okay? They're not paying attention. They're focused on folly. They're focused on, childish things, comedy, and, celebrity news and gossip. What's going on at the church, and the deacon's wife doing this, and worried about the madness when all eyes should be on the Middle East. A lot of these, like the brother Amawan Gabar was saying, put these YNs in the draft. Put these, these white boys, man, that want to be tough and hunt and and MAGA. Put all the MAGA, all these MAGA Edomites. Put their sons in the war then. Since y'all so pro-Trump, y'all for his administration, put your boys in the war. A lot of you MAGA guys got boys 18 or about to turn 18 to 26, 27. All your sons and nephews and grandchildren, let them go fight the war. Let these YNs go fight the war. All these immigrants that want to join themselves to America and be a part of the beast, let them go fight the war. The white man's war. Because that's the time we in anyway. So if you're going to be American, go all the way out, man. Okay? Let's get Ecclesiastes 3 and 8. Matter of fact, I'm going to just start at the top. All right, a time for everything. That's the heading. To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. And obviously we're in a time to kill. And there's going to be a lot of killing going on by the hands of the so-called white man. Okay? But guess what? Simultaneously, we're also in the time to heal. Because Yahweh Shah said what? That he's going to come with healing in his wings. But that healing is only directed towards the elect. Everybody else is going to fall by the sword or by the famine or however. A time to break down and a time to build up. And we're in both of those times. Okay? The breaking down of Babylon the Great and the building up of the kingdom of Israel. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to get and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to cast away. A time to rend and a time to sow. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. And here's the point. A time of war and a time of peace. And the peace will come after the war. Okay? Because the people who's in power are not a people of peace. They are a people of chaos and deception and witchcraft and violence. And that's what's going to bring war. Evil egos, envy, pride, malice, okay, greed. And afterwards, it'll bring a time of peace, which will be the kingdom of heaven. So prepare for more military shifts, more rollouts and mandates, more restrictions, hard times. Okay, it's exciting times, man. Exciting times. Okay, these prophecies are unfolding. The Lord has given us a lot of action right now, so just keep your eyes on watch, man. So with that, I'm gonna give all praises to Yahweh Bashem Shai Bashem Kakodash. Double honors once again to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the elect. Shalom.